Amen? There's another testimony coming that's very interesting. Actually, I haven't heard this one. I am dying to hear this one. But with that said, I wanted to plug in the ministry again. When you don't think that God is working is where God is working the most. And I see things that will blow your mind through this ministry, that people that you thought were never gonna even touch the ground of that place, all of a sudden are there and their whole life has completely changed. And I'll give you an example of how God works, and then I'll let my sister walk in with this. There's a story that my mom tells, okay? Now, keep this in your mind. When you have somebody that used to come to church, a family member, a friend, somebody from work, or somebody that does not go to church, and you've been trying to get them in here, don't stop. Because what God is working in the background, I'll show you how. My mom used to work at a cotton factory. They used to make like earplugs and stuff like that. And she used to take tracts to this place. And she used to pass them out to all the co-workers. There was this one specific woman. She was an atheist, but she had a very explicit language. She had beautiful language, if you know where I'm going with this. And when my mom would give her a tract, she would come out with this beautiful language and let her have it. Oh. Okay? And my mom would just give her the tract with a smile on her face, and then she would just do that every day. And this woman would keep instigating. Well, my mom left, okay? She left the job 10 years ago, and this is the wonderful thing about God. And keep this in mind as you hear this testimony that's coming. And 10 years after she had left that job, lo and behold, one day, somebody knocks at the door. And my mom opens the door. And it just happens to be that lady that used to speak very eloquently to my mom. And she looks at her and she tells her, Sandra, I've been looking for you for about 9 years. And my mom is taken aback. Oh man, this lady's going to let me have it again. Right? So she opens the door and like, okay, hi, how are you? And this and that. And she tells her, thank you. Because of you, I found God. 10 years later. Those little tracts that you were passing out, I started reading them. And not only did I find God, I became an Adventist. And I got baptized. And I've been looking for 10 years just to say thank you for insisting. Amen?
Amen.
So God works. Don't worry about the circumstances. Yeah. Don't worry about the situations. You move. You go with the Spirit. Let everything else, God handles everything else. Amen? Amen. And with that said, I'm going to let my sister Quinn, where she is? Okay, there she is. Tell her testimony.
Amen. Amen, Quinn.
Happy Sabbath, church.
Amen.
My story is very similar to the story you just heard. A very close friend of mine, David, I met him and he knew the Bible so well. I just knew he was Baptist. I grew up Baptist. My grandmother was a pastor. My whole family's Baptist. And he told me he was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I was like, what is that? Are you a Jehovah's Witness? Or are you Jewish? I didn't understand that. I never heard of it before. But sure enough, our friendship continued, and he invited me to church a few times, and I very politely and eloquently said no. I grew up Baptist, that was all I knew, and I was very uncomfortable with the idea of going to a church that I was unfamiliar with. So as time went on, CYC, this is 2 years ago, CYC came up and he invited me, and he explained to me that it was a camp and it was a place of worship. You can grow closer to God, and I said no because I was very set in my ways. And when my grandmother passed away, she was the glue in my family. She was our personal pastor. I then had to seek God on my own. So I attempted to do that. And I found a church. I was very happy with the church I was at. And I was explaining to David, like, I got my own church. And, I love going to church. And I go to church on Sunday. And he would slowly but surely introduce me to Seventh-day Adventist ways. He would explain to me, God rested on the Sabbath day. And he would break that down to me and show me the verses in the Bible. And I slowly but surely started to learn the Seventh-day Adventist way, which made me question the path that I was on. So one particular day, he challenged me to read the Bible on my own and write down the verse, write down what I believed the verse was saying, and then leave a blank spot for the pastor who would be interpreting the verse. So I did just that. I went to church, And again, I was confident that I was right and he was wrong. I just knew the way, of course. And come to find out, the verses that I had wrote down and that I had deciphered myself, the pastor wasn't saying the same thing. And in fact, it was completely wrong. And I then grew very fearful. I was very scared of the path I was on. I didn't know where to go. And I just knew that the life I was living and the church I was going to was not the church that was going to get me into the kingdom. So I stopped going to church. I stopped going to church for about 2 weeks. And of course, the enemy, he loved that. I was very confused. I was, if you will, I was that lost sheep. I was in a very dark place. I didn't know where to go. And CYC rolled around again. And he invited me again. And I had every excuse in the book. I'm like, I don't have a car to get that far. And he was like, I'll come pick you up. And I was like, well, I got my son with me. I don't have daycare. He was like, bring him. It's like, oh, well, money's an issue right now, and I just don't have it. He said, don't worry about that, just come. And he finally said, if you don't want to go, Quinn, just say that. It's okay, I won't be offended, just say that. And I'm like, no, of course I want to go. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I want to go, of course I'm going to go. So I went, and when I finally got there on that mountain, I was terrified. I was completely terrified. I didn't know what to expect. I remember sitting in my car, and I was praying to God, and I was just like, I'm lost. I don't know where to find you. I don't know what I'm doing. If this is of you, if Seventh-day Adventist is of you, please show me in a special way. I need you. I need you. And I don't want this to be from a pastor standing up there on the pulpit, preaching. I don't want it to be through songs and of worship. I want this to be personal. I want you to speak to me and me only, and just let me know that this is of you. And if it is, I'll follow. And I got out my car and I left that at that. And everyone was saying Happy Sabbath to me. I had no clue what that meant, but I just went with it because it sounded nice. So, I didn't want to be the odd man out. And the first night went well. The next morning we went to what was called United Prayer, and we all gathered together at the altar. And we just let all our worries and fears and concerns right there, and we all prayed for one another. And it was a beautiful thing. I've never done anything like that before. And Rachel Miner, she was the first presenter, and I remember seeing her up there giving her sermon, and I wasn't really too fond of her. And I couldn't figure out at the time, I felt like I want to make sure I'm getting the words right. She was just so young, and I'm like, how is this young girl going to tell me about the Bible? When she was up there, she was just so happy and so joyful, and I'm like, I'm happy. I got happiness in my life. I got a nice place, I got a nice car, got my own job. I'm happy. And the more she preached, the more she went into this sermon, I started to notice that she had something that I didn't. And that anger and that, almost judgmental side of me started to disappear, and I started to get curious as to what it was. And towards the end of her sermon, I was actually hoping that maybe I could just talk to her. Maybe she would, open up to me and just tell me what the secret was. Now, at the time, it was Christ, and I just didn't know that. I didn't bite the bait at the time. But when we went outside to go eat, she came around the corner, and she was just smiling, and her hair was blowing in the wind, and I'm like, this girl's just got it all. She's just one happy camper. And surely she's not going to talk to me. I found out through my roommate that she grew up in ministry. She went to school for ministry. Her dad was in ministry. Her family was in ministry. And I just wasn't living that lifestyle. So surely she wouldn't want to talk to someone like me. And she got ready to walk past me. And she turned to me and she said, Happy Sabbath, sis. And she gave me the biggest hug. And every time I think about it, I felt joy, and I felt happiness, and I felt like everything that I was worried about, all my concerns, it didn't matter, that it was okay to leave my worries and fears on that mountain. It was okay to open up. And I remember just holding her so tight. She was holding me, and I was thinking to myself, God, I hope she doesn't let me go. And she pulled me in tighter. And I began to think to myself as I was holding her, this is God, this is Christ right here. This is what I prayed for. This is what I needed. And after that experience, I was ready for whatever God wanted to give me. I was ready for whatever sermons were to come. And they were beautiful sermons. I learned things about music, the music I listened to, and how the enemy uses that to, speak to our kids and to our youth, and the movies we watch. From Disney movies, how it teaches our young girls that, we need this man to come save us when the only person who can save us is Christ, And there were so many different things at CYC that were personable to me and to John and so many others that went there. So when you say, can you hear me now? It's so personal. It's for whatever you're going through. You leave your worries and your fears on that mountain. You learn so much more about Christ. I too thought I knew it all. And come to find out, I have no idea that there was so much more to learn. So after that experience, I decided to start going to a 7-day Adventist church. I grew closer to Christ. I started to keep the Sabbath. I grew closer to my pastor. And I decided January of this year that I wanted to get baptized, and I did. And I've been on fire for Christ ever since then. So if you're thinking about going, if you have kids or sisters or brothers or cousins, I would definitely invite them to go, because it's such a personal experience to be up there with Christ and others that want to fellowship and worship. You learn so much about yourself, about others, about Christ, and it's just the pathway to the kingdom, if you will. It puts you on the right path, and I hope to see all of you there.